Next up, we have Stuti Pandey from Kraken Ventures, who will be presenting the new Stablecoin Trilemma. Please welcome Stuti, everyone.
Okay, now, so I'm Stuti, I'm a partner at Kraken Ventures, and today we're going to talk about the new Stablecoin Trilemma. Can we get the door back there? Thanks. All right, so the world that we're building stablecoins for has changed dramatically since the first stablecoin was minted. So today I'm proposing a new stablecoin trilemma to match this new world order. So first, a little bit about Kraken Ventures. So our thesis is that blockchain is better infrastructure for financial services, and we invest at the early stage between pre-seed and A. We're anchored by Kraken and have an additional network of value-add LPs. And our value add is also our Kraken relationship, as well as the network and experience that the four of us also have in the industry. This is a preview of our portfolio. We've been very active in the stablecoin and payment space. But now, back to the stablecoin trilemma. So let's start with the past. In the past, we had the original stablecoin trilemma, where we were debating how can we prioritize against stability, capital efficiency, and decentralization. This early trilemma reflected DeFi sentiment when this world was born. Some of the things we were thinking about was just pure decentralization as an ideology, but also as a reaction to Tether. The world back then was really about building cool shit and just seeing what works. This trilemma inspired and guided early builders in the DeFi and stablecoin space. And most importantly, it influenced consumers who were mainly DeFi and crypto natives. But the world has changed since then. So first of all, stability back then was a spectrum. We were genuinely okay with the possibility that some stablecoins had widely deviating pegs. But then we had a few famous depegs. In 2020, DAI had the famous Black Thursday, after which they then introduced the peg stability module. We had 2021, Iron Finance, 2022, the infamous Terra collapse, and then 2023, when USDC depegged due to the SVB implosion. So we've learned that an unstable stablecoin is actually not a stablecoin. Next, decentralization. So I believe that pure decentralization was DeFi's immaculate conception lore. The types of decentralization, when we're thinking about pure decentralization, we are taking into account might include decentralized collateral, decentralized governance, ownership, oracles, or even identity, but this is non-exhaustive. But now we need to build for high utility and trust. And some examples of where we can maybe retain some decentralizations, but it is not necessarily pure, is Maker/Sky is still a DAO, but uses USDC/T-bills. Athena might use crypto-native collateral, but their counterparty are centralized exchanges. Usual, we have decentralized ownership, but they also used RWAs as collateral. So the learning here is that Virgin stablecoin lore did serve us in early DeFi, but now it limits its proliferation. And we shouldn't abandon all decentralization. I'm sure that's a big topic at this event, but I believe we are still building a new view on what this is going to mean for us in this new order. Next, let's look at capital efficiency. So these ideals promise that DeFi would be as efficient as TradFi. Some of the levers that we took into account were collateral type, collateralization ratio, insurance funds, etc. Until that is, a lot of FUD ensued over the last years. So we've had perpetual USDT FUD around whether or not it's fully collateralized. Once again, there's the Iron Finance collapse, and then most famously, the Terra Luna collapse. Our learning after this was that highly capital efficient stablecoins are going to now receive capital punishment. And under-collateralized and self-collateralized stablecoins are now somewhat considered insolvent instead of highly efficient. So I believe that the old stablecoin trilemma is dead, and it doesn't meet the needs of the world that we are serving now. So now we're in the present, where I'd like to present to you a new stablecoin trilemma. A different trilemma is needed for DeFi's new chapter. This is a chapter where we need to take into account high utility, high performance, and increasing integration with macro, very unlike the early DeFi days. So the new stablecoin trilemma. On the first corner, we have yield. The second, capital scalability. And the third, risk. So now we are looking for optimizations across yield, capital scalability, and risk. So let's start with yield. So the rise in interest rates over the last year plus has created an opportunity for DeFi to focus on yield-bearing stablecoins that bring in exogenous yield. And there's a few models around this. First, you have crypto-native yields, such as the first version of Athena and Liquidity. Then you have RWA-backed yields. So that would be, say, a Mountain Protocol, an Ondo. Then you have mixed yield, which is a Spark, a Frax, or a Usual. And then finally, indirect yield, where perhaps they are incentivizing distribution partners, such as an Agora or a PY, PayPal USD. The ideal here is that ideal yield is high. Next, we have capital scalability. So let's look at this from tiers of scalability. And the question is, how much can you scale a strategy before reaching its limit and impacting risk and yield? So you have very low scalability, which would have been this era of CDP stablecoins that were based off of DEX emissions. Low to medium, Athena, right? The version at launch, where there's a limit on how much collateral you can actually have access to before it flips the yield that is available. Medium, SDI, and Usual. They use a mix of crypto-native yield and RWA yield. And then high, T-bill only. And the ideal capital scalability is high. Third, we have risk. And this is very non-exhaustive. There's an entire crypto industry around risk, risk curators, risk managers, risk platforms. But some of the factors around risk can include counterparty risk, collateral quality, operational design, redemption mechanisms. And this is not just about having high, low, or medium risk. There's also a concept of having diversified risk and building a portfolio where you have different types of counterparty risk. But these are just rough inputs for risk. So now I want to run you through a couple of examples of stablecoins going through this new trilemma. So first example is Athena. Let's just take around the time that they launched, where it was entirely collateralized by the basis trade. So at that point, yield was high, as it was reflecting the funding rates at the time. Capital scalability, low to medium, because this really tracks the scale of the crypto market and how much open interest you can constitute without actually flipping the yield. And the risk, I would say, was medium to high. The counterparty is centralized exchanges and crypto-native collateral, which is not necessarily better or worse, but it is different, and it is higher risk than, say, just the US government. Next, let's take the example of Usual, which is one of the fastest growing stablecoins in the market right now. The yield is medium. The floor for the yield is the T-bill rate, but because of the governance mechanics, it means that the ceiling can be higher than this. Capital scalability is medium to high. While they are backed by RWAs, it also comes from RWAs minted on other platforms. And the risk, I would say, is low to medium. Third, let's take the example of Agora. So with Agora, yield is low and indirect. They pass through T-bill rates to distribution partners, and they're focused on very safe operational design, which is why the risk is low, given their focus on compliance as well. And the capital scalability, given their collateral type, is quite high. Finally, let's take the example of Spark/SDI. I would say that they sit right in the middle across a lot of these different factors, where the yield is medium. It's collateralized by a combination of T-bills as well as crypto-native collaterals, such as actually Athena. I'd say the capital scalability is also medium for this reason, and the risk is also medium for this reason. So with this in mind, I'd like to now consider what is the future of stablecoins going to be. So managing the stablecoin trilemma, the new stablecoin trilemma, is a go-to-market and growth exercise. As you search for customer segments that have unique needs, you're looking for ones that you can service better than incumbents, and that's why you make these trade-offs across the trilemma. But your design isn't static. Stablecoins proactively iterate and update their strategy to reflect market conditions and their state of scale. For example, Athena is now adding treasury bills, or SDAI is adding Athena. So I believe that at scales, designs will start to converge, because at scale, you need scalable collateral. And as a result, yield and risk will likely come down. And you're going to need another way to stand out. Operating at scale is going to require different expertise than what was required to go to market and grow your stablecoin. How do you actually prove that your $1 is better than somebody else's $1? I believe that at convergence, the reason you retain a loyal community of users has to transcend design. And I propose it has to do with values, alignment, and ideology. So why values advocacy? Let's take the example of 2 white t-shirts. You need to buy a white t-shirt. They are both roughly similar price, similar style. Which one do you choose? Maybe you check out the brand and you decide to align with the identity that you identify the most with, or you aspire to, or maybe it's a coin toss. And brands are very effective at creating these elements of desire and emotional experiences when it comes to how you make your purchase decisions. And I think that this learning has yet to be adopted by DeFi. And I think this is the first opportunity for how you scale and manage a stablecoin at scale. But actually, I don't think that this is enough. We need to go one step further. What if one t-shirt was sending profits to the Kamala Harris campaign and the other one was sending profits to the Donald Trump campaign? Now we're moving beyond brand, and we're going straight for values and ideology, which is much more effective for stickiness and community activation, but it requires a lot, far more guts than just building a brand. Stablecoins, $1 can and will differ from each other based on the characters that they espouse, their moral stances, the way that they govern their protocols, the philosophies that they're aligned with, the way that they engage with their communities, and how and where they promote their actions. This will enable stablecoins to create stickiness around their liquidity and attract users, especially when the market slows down in growth. So at scale, we start to see, so far, crypto protocols tend to converge on having non-controversial brands. But I believe that this is a huge opportunity for change. The other thing that we also see is that DeFi protocols, they often focus on interesting design around math, technology, and economics to distinguish between themselves. And I'm sure a lot of you might be DeFi founders in this room, and this is something that you're very proud of, right? But as decentralized finance becomes global finance, brand values will need to have to transcend just these design elements. And the next chapter for DeFi and stablecoins is going to be about designing values-based emotional experiences. So thank you, and I'd love your feedback on this as well.